Do you remember that one SpongeBob episode where Squidward was moving into this town where other people like him were living together? If you haven't watched that, then let me tell you what happened in the end. Squidward became fed up with how perfect the town was, and he actually misses the imperfection back at home. Okay, you might be wondering where I'm going with this. Hear me out, there's a town just like the one where Squidward became crazy, but our version. Don't believe me? Here it is. It's a town built by Disney, and here's the advert. There once was a place where neighbors greeted neighbors in a quiet of summer twilight, where children chased fireflies and porch swings provided easy refuge from the cares of the day. The movie house showed cartoons on Saturday, the grocery store delivered, and there was one teacher who always knew you had that special something. Remember that place? Crazy, right? I actually think that the advert is pretty good in making us feel nostalgic, at least for me, because those are exactly the things that comes to my mind when I picture the ideal neighborhood. Not a care in the world, everybody is friendly with one another, and the children can grow up in a healthy environment. On top of that, they promised huge lofty houses with beautiful yards surrounded by white picket fences and immaculate streetscapes. And it shouldn't come as a surprise that it was a huge hit, as the demands had exceeded their target by 10-folds that they had to run a lottery. They were only selling about 474 homes, but over 5,000 people entered for a chance to purchase them. And Disney has invested a lot on this town. A whopping $4 billion was invested, which involves hiring exceptional architects to make this piece of fantasy into a reality. The result is what the residents there call as the bubble, because they felt cut off living there from the rest of the world. In the end, it's a matter of perspective. For someone who's a huge fan of Disney, might see it as a dream come true, but for the rest of us, the town just feels downright creepy. Everything just feels artificial, and like everything in this world, it requires maintenance, and maintenance requires work. So for the residents of Celebration, they have to follow an absurd 160 pages of strict rules and regulations. This includes having to hide a Mickey Mouse hidden somewhere in the house, to plant only certain types of plants in the garden, to have only one car in the driveway and hide remaining cars at the back of the house, to use a certain color of curtains, and to make sure the height of their lawns doesn't exceed a certain height. This is the cost of perfection. When moving to Celebration, this is what the residents were expected to follow. To make the town even creepier, speakers were installed hidden in the trees, either to play a never-ending birdsong or the shopping center-style muzak, which gives Celebration a whole nother level of creepiness. Other stuff that was controlled by the Imagineers of Disney was the atmosphere during seasonal changes like autumn. The town literally imported fallen leaves to scatter throughout the town, and fake snow was put on rooftops during winter. Disney also installed an ice skating rink with fake snow falling from the trees. Everything seems to be working out pretty well at first, as schools and hospitals were open for the now expanding town of 10,000 people. The happiest place on earth does not seem like a far-off dream now. Or is it? As the town expanded, cracks began to surface. It started off from the many complaints from residents of leaking roofs and other structural problems. Once an inquiry was set up to investigate, the houses were found to have many flaws. They found at least 70 homes that needed new roofs, and according to the contractors, they were pitted against Disney's strict rules and tight deadlines, hence the reason many of the homes were faulty. The schools were problematic as well, as each class packed 80 students from different grades, taught by only 3 teachers. The classroom environment was so hectic that many parents say it was a waste of time. The principal quit in a year, followed by a quarter of the staff. Teachers were said to be brutal with the comments in their students' report cards, resulting in many parents pulling their kids out of the school, selling their homes, and moving out of Celebration because of it. The original vision of Celebration to include people from all different class backgrounds was also a failure, as they had overlooked the cost to build the town with its strict architectural guidelines. This resulted in having to sell the homes for a minimum of $124,000, putting the price 20% above the average homes in the US in 1994. Then, the crack began to become more pronounced as the years followed. According to one resident, he said, "People who move here have the intention to hide away from problems and find some fairy tale ending, but they don't get it. The term celebration separation was starting to pick up around the town to describe the practice of wife swapping, which was increasingly becoming a norm in Celebration. Pretty much all the British people I know who have moved here have come happily married and ended up divorced. I'd never met swingers that much until I came here, according to a property investor who lives in the town. And then, I kid you not, they have this place called the Death Pond. It's a big pond located a few kilometers south of Celebration, and before 1998, there were no signs on the road to signal how sharp the turn is and how you could easily end up driving into the water. And as you can guess, that is exactly how they came up with the macabre name for the pond. The most well-known case included 3 young men who were vacationing in Florida in the summer of 1998 when they mysteriously vanished. It was only after 9 months that their bodies was discovered at the bottom of the lake, still inside their car. Following this finding, rumors had spread that police divers had discovered at least 4 more automobiles in the pond. And because of these incidents, a big wall with flashing lights has been installed to notify vehicles that a sharp turn is ahead. Then, it progressively got worse from there. In 1998, the town was shocked in its foundation as a couple was bound and gagged in their home by a gang of mass burglars. This shouldn't happen because Celebration was supposed to be this place where problems don't exist, let alone a crime as traumatizing as a home invasion. But, as I said, it only got worse from there. A school teacher who's a resident in Celebration was murdered in 2010. The teacher, Matteo Patrick Giovandito, was strangled to death and his body was hacked using an axe during his sleep. David Israel Murillo, the killer, was sentenced to life in prison because of what he did, and when asked why, he said he was invited by the school teacher to wash his car for money, and this is when Giovandito attempted to rape him. The school teacher, according to Murillo, had a thing for kids and that he is not the only victim of Giovandito, but several other boys were also victims. And literally days after the first murder, another resident made national headlines following a 14-hour standoff with police that ended when he shot a police officer before shooting himself. Because of these murders, it has tainted both the town's name and Disney's, proving once again that there's no such thing as heaven on earth. Disney sold Celebration in 2004 to a New York company. When the recession of the late 2000s hit the US, Florida was badly impacted, forcing many Celebration residents to sell. Property prices fell around 60%. The local cinema closed as well as several shops, while vandalism and thefts in the town skyrocketed. On one hand, the Celebration project was experimental and something that should be applauded, but in promising perfection, it absolutely failed. And like anything in life, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If you can't get enough of creepy town stories like Celebration and you want more, I highly recommend that you watch this video and explore the infamous lore from Scotland about a town that was terrorized by a cannibalistic family. I hand-drawn almost all of the scenes myself, which is why this episode has a special place in my heart. So please do watch the video if you're interested. I hope you'll enjoy it, and I'll see you there.